The night my sister forgot to lock her iPad, I found the group chat my family never meant me to see. In it, they mocked me, used me, and joked that I'd keep funding their lives if they faked love well enough. I said nothing. I let them feel safe. At 8:12 on a Tuesday night, I was standing in my sister Lauren's kitchen in Columbus, Ohio, holding her unlocked iPad in both hands while a pot of boxed macaroni boiled over on the stove behind me. Starchy water hissed against the burner. I didn't move. I couldn't move because the screen in my hands had just reorganized every memory I'd ever carried about the people I loved most. The group chat was called Family Only. My name wasn't in it. The first message I read was from my mother, Martha. She's just a doormat. She'll keep paying our bills if we pretend to love her. Then my brother Daniel with a laughing emoji. Daniel, exactly. Amelia needs to feel needed. That's her weakness. And Lauren, my sister, whose kitchen I was standing in, whose children I had picked up from school that afternoon, whose iPad I'd grabbed because it wouldn't stop buzzing, and I thought maybe it was the school nurse again about Tyler's ear infection. Lauren, don't push too hard this month. She covered Mom's electric and my car note already. The macaroni kept boiling. The steam fogged the bottom of the screen, and I kept scrolling. I need to go back, because if I don't explain what came before, you'll think I snapped. I didn't snap. Snapping would have been easier. What happened was slower and colder and far more precise than snapping. I'm Amelia Marsh, 34 years old, senior financial analyst at a mid-sized logistics firm in downtown Columbus. I own a 2-bedroom condo in German Village with a paid-off Honda Civic in the garage and a credit score of 811. On paper, I'm the kind of person you'd call stable, responsible, the one who always has it together. In my family, they had a different word for that, useful. My father left when I was 11. Not dramatically, no slamming doors, no final screaming match at 2 a.m. He just didn't come home from a business trip to Memphis. My mother called his hotel. The front desk said he'd checked out 2 days earlier. He sent a letter 6 weeks later, not to her, to me, with $200 cash and a single sentence. Take care of them for me, Millie. As if fatherhood was a temp position and I was the next shift. So I did. I was 11 and I took care of them. I got a job at 14, bussing tables at a diner called Rosie's that smelled like bacon grease and bleach. I gave half my paychecks to my mother. By 16, I was covering the gas bill in winter because Martha said the Social Security check didn't stretch. By 18, I was paying Lauren's prom expenses because she deserves to feel normal, Amelia. By 22, I co-signed Daniel's first apartment lease because he had no credit, and my mother asked with tears in her eyes, real ones, I think. I used to think. I never questioned it, not once. Because every time I paid something, my mother would squeeze my hand and say, I don't know what we'd do without you. Lauren would hug me and call me her rock. Daniel would nod in that gruff, embarrassed way and say, I owe you one, sis. And I'd feel it, that warm, necessary feeling. Like I mattered. Like without me, the whole structure would collapse. Like love was a transaction, and I was buying enough of it to never be abandoned again. That's the thing about being the family rescuer. You don't realize you're being bled until you check the wound. I should have noticed sooner. The signs were there, small ones, the kind you explain away because the alternative is too ugly. 3 Thanksgivings ago, I overheard Lauren on the phone in the hallway while I was basting the turkey I'd bought and cooked. She was laughing. No, she loves doing this, she said. It makes her feel important. When she came back, she smiled and asked if the cranberry sauce was ready. I told myself she was talking about someone else. Then there was the time Daniel needed $400 for a car repair. He said his Honda had thrown a rod. I transferred the money within an hour. 2 weeks later, I saw a photo on his Instagram. New tattoo sleeve, fresh ink, still wrapped in cellophane. $1,400 worth of color crawling up his forearm. When I asked about the car, he said, oh, it ended up being less than I thought. He didn't offer the difference back. I told myself it was an oversight. And my mother, Martha, the queen of the trembling lower lip. She called me every Friday. Not to talk, I realized later, but to collect. The calls followed a script so consistent I could have set a watch by it. 10 minutes of neighborhood gossip, 5 minutes of health complaints, then the pivot. Oh, sweetheart, before I forget, grocery money, a prescription copay, the water bill, which she swore had doubled even though she lived alone in a 900 square foot apartment. I told myself she was old and proud, and this was just how mothers asked for help. I told myself a lot of things. The truth is, I told myself whatever I needed to hear so I wouldn't have to sit with the silence my father left behind. Because if I stopped paying and they stopped calling, I'd have my answer. And I wasn't ready for that answer. Until Tuesday night, 8:12 p.m., Lauren's kitchen, that iPad. I stood there for 11 minutes. I know because the stove timer went off at 8:23 and the macaroni had turned to paste. In those 11 minutes, I scrolled through 4 months of messages. They had screenshots of my bank transfers, timestamps circled in red, amounts highlighted. Lauren had screenshotted a $1,200 Zelle I sent for her dental bill last March and captioned it. She didn't even ask what it was for LOL. Daniel had sent a voice memo. I couldn't play it. Not there. Not with Lauren 30 feet away drying her hands in the bathroom. But the transcript preview read, honestly, the trick is to sound annoyed when you ask, like you hate needing help. She pays faster when she thinks you're embarrassed. My mother, had written a message on September 14th, the day after my birthday, the day after she'd posted a photo of us at dinner with the caption, my beautiful girl, my heart. The message read, if she starts asking questions, cry first. It always works. Below that, a follow-up. And don't forget to mention dad. That shuts her down every time. My vision blurred. Not tears. Something behind my eyes tightened like a vice grip. I could feel my pulse in my jaw. My hands were steady though. Perfectly steady. That's the part that scared me afterward. Not the shaking, but the absence of it. Lauren walked back into the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. Who keeps texting me? She asked asked. I angled the screen away before she could read my face. Probably school stuff, I said, handing it back. She studied me for a second. Just a second. You okay? I smiled. I even stirred the macaroni. Yeah, just tired. That night, I drove home to my condo in German Village. I parked in the garage. I sat in the car for 40 minutes with the engine off and the overhead light on, staring at the concrete wall. I did not cry. I want to be clear about that. Not because crying is weak, but because what I felt wasn't sadness. It was something architectural, like a load-bearing wall inside me had been quietly removed, and I was standing in the seconds before the ceiling came down, watching the cracks spread, calculating which way to step. At 11:40 p.m., I went inside. I opened my laptop at the dining table. I logged into every account I had ever used to help them and started building a spreadsheet. Column A, recipient. Column B, payment type. Column C, amount. Column D, frequency. Column E, date started. Column F, total paid to date. The final number at the bottom of column F when I finished at 3:17 a.m. was $74,613. $74,613 over 8 years. Not counting the cash, not counting the groceries I bought in person, the gas I filled in their tanks, the Christmas gifts I wrapped for Lauren's kids and labeled from mommy and daddy because Lauren said she couldn't afford presents that year. $74,000. I closed the laptop. I made chamomile tea. I drank it standing at my kitchen window, looking out at the brick row houses across the street where normal families presumably lived. Families that didn't maintain a private chat room dedicated to farming one member for cash. At 6 a.m., I made coffee and sat down at the dining table. By noon, every automatic payment was canceled. My mother's phone bill, gone. Daniel's insurance auto pay, gone. Lauren's daycare draft that was supposed to be temporary 6 months ago, gone. The streaming subscriptions I'd added to my account so they could all watch, gone. The pharmacy card linked to my credit card that my mother used for her prescriptions, deactivated. Every single thread connecting my bank account to their lives, severed. By 1 p.m., I had moved my savings, $41,000, into a new account at a different bank. I chose Huntington because their branch was 3 blocks from my office, and because it felt right to move my money somewhere none of them had ever heard of. By 2 p.m., I had printed screenshots of their group chat, every message, every laughing emoji, every screenshot of my Zelle transfers. I highlighted the worst lines in yellow, the doormat comment, the ATM joke, the cry first instruction, and placed the pages into 3 plain white envelopes. I wrote their names on the front in black Sharpie, Martha, Daniel, Lauren, then I called my mother. Amelia, I was just thinking about you. I'm hosting family dinner tomorrow night, I said. 6:30. On a Wednesday? That's unusual. I want to do something nice, I said. The lie came so easily it frightened me. I've been feeling disconnected lately. She softened immediately. Oh, honey, that's so sweet. I'll bring flowers. Perfect, I said. See you then. I hung up and felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. And for the first time, I didn't try to fill that emptiness with a check. I spent the next day preparing. Not just the food, the room, the atmosphere, the stage. I called my financial advisor, Helen Park, a CPA with 14 years of experience at a firm on Broad Street. I'd been working with her for 2 years, ever since a coworker recommended her after his divorce. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, which is how I knew it was bad. Financial advisors interrupt when the problem is simple. First, she said, you need to freeze your credit. Today. All 3 bureaus. Why? Because if your brother co-signed anything using your information, or if your mother has your social security number memorized, which she does, Amelia, she's your mother, you need to make sure no one opens a line of credit in your name out of retaliation. My stomach dropped. I hadn't even considered that. Second, Helen continued, document everything. Every transfer, every canceled payment, every conversation. If anyone tries to claim you owe them something or files a fraudulent charge, you want a paper trail that would hold up in small claims. Do you think it'll come to that? She paused. In my experience, people who treat family like a funding source don't stop when the funding stops. They escalate. I froze my credit by 4 p.m. I saved every screenshot in 3 places. My laptop, a USB drive, and a secure cloud folder. I called my HR department and had my emergency contact changed from Martha Marsh to my friend and coworker, Denise Walton, who'd known me since orientation 7 years ago and was the only person I'd ever told about the Friday phone calls. You're finally doing it, Denise said when I told her. You knew? Amelia, I've watched you send money during lunch breaks with your hands shaking. I just didn't know how to say it without making you feel worse. That sentence hit me harder than anything in the group chat. Wednesday evening, 6:30 p.m. I had set the table like it was Thanksgiving. Linen napkins, the good plates, the crystal water glasses I'd bought at an estate sale 2 years ago and never used because I was always saving them for something special. A roasted chicken, golden and crackling, green beans with almonds, garlic mashed potatoes, warm rolls in a basket lined with a checkered cloth, and the lemon pie, my mother's favorite, the one she always called our special tradition, as if she'd ever once helped make it, as if she'd ever stood beside me at this counter measuring sugar. Candles burned low at the center, soft jazz played from the Bluetooth speaker by the window. The apartment looked warm, elegant, and calm. That was intentional. I wanted no chaos except the kind I controlled. Lauren arrived first with her husband Eric and their 2 boys, Tyler and James. The kids ran to the living room. Lauren hugged me, smelling like vanilla body spray, and said, "This is so nice, Mills." Eric shook my hand and carried in a bottle of wine. Daniel showed up 10 minutes late, wearing the same cracked leather jacket he'd had for years, acting like punctuality was a concept invented by people with nothing better to do. He dropped into a chair without greeting anyone and said said, "Hope you made extra." I skipped lunch. "Of course," I said. My mother arrived last, carrying a supermarket bouquet, carnations and baby's breath, the $7.99 kind, and her usual expression of weary martyrdom, as if even entering my home required an effort worthy of applause. "Amelia, this smells amazing," she said, air kissing the space beside my cheek. I served everyone. I smiled when expected. I asked Lauren about the boys' soccer league. I nodded through Daniel's complaints about gas prices and his landlord. I listened to my mother talk about her neighbor's dog and her chiropractor and the price of eggs. Every thank you, every "this is delicious," every casual laugh made the cold clarity inside me settle deeper, sharper, steadier. I wasn't shaking anymore. I was done shaking. Halfway through dinner, my mother dabbed her mouth with the linen napkin and said, "Sweetheart, before I forget, my electric bill jumped again this month. I'm about $200 short." Daniel snorted. "That reminds me, I need a little help too. My insurance payment hit early and I'm tight." Lauren didn't even hesitate. "And daycare double charged me this month. I was going to ask after dessert, but since we're talking about it, for one strange, almost beautiful moment, I admired their consistency, their choreography, the way they'd turned this dinner table into a toll booth and my presence into a fair. They had truly trained themselves to believe I would never stop paying, that I couldn't. That need was hardwired into me like a reflex, and all they had to do was apply the right pressure at the right moment." I stood up. "Actually," I said, "before we get to any of that, I have something for each of you." I walked to the kitchen counter and returned with the 3 white envelopes. Lauren looked at hers. "What's this?" "Open them," I said. I sent the boys into the living room with cartoon shows on the TV and their own plates of pie. I'd thought about this. Whatever happened in the next 10 minutes, those kids were not going to sit in the blast radius. Paper slid from envelopes. I stood at the head of the table and watched their eyes move left to right, top to bottom. My mother's face drained first. The color left her cheeks the way water leaves a sink, slowly, then all at once. Daniel's neck flushed red, creeping up past his collar like a thermometer. Lauren's lips parted, then pressed shut so tight the skin around them went white. On the first page, highlighted in yellow, "She's just a doormat. She'll keep paying our bills if we pretend to love her." On the second, "Amelia needs to feel needed. That's her weakness." On the third, "Don't push too hard this month. She covered mom's electric and my car note already." No one spoke. I let the silence do what silence does when it's full. I let it sit on them. I let them feel the weight of being seen. Then I said, "I found the chat on Lauren's iPad Tuesday night. My mother recovered first. She always recovered first. I had watched her do it my entire life. The quick recalibration, the shift from caught to righteous, the way she could rearrange her face faster than most people blink." "Amelia, honey," she said, her voice dropping into that low maternal register, "you shouldn't have been reading private conversations." I let out a short laugh, one syllable. "That's your defense?" "It was venting," Lauren said quickly, her voice climbing. "People say things when they're stressed. You know that. You say things too." I say things like, "I'll cover it. Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out," I said. I don't say cry first. It always works. Daniel tossed the pages onto the table. They fanned out across the linen like evidence in a courtroom. "You're acting like this is a crime. We're family. Families help each other. Families don't run scripts, Daniel. Families don't coach each other on how to manipulate someone into paying their insurance." My mother lifted her chin. "After everything this family has been through, after your father left, after I raised 3 children alone, you're going to humiliate us over text messages?" "No," I said. "I'm choosing to stop funding people who mock me behind my back and call me an ATM with abandonment issues." That phrase, "ATM with abandonment issues," came from Daniel. October 3rd, 9:47 p.m. He'd typed it in the group chat after I'd sent him $800 for what he claimed was an emergency vet bill for a dog he didn't own. I had it highlighted on page 4. His jaw tightened. He remembered. I reached behind me and slid one more sheet of paper across the table, the spreadsheet, the full accounting. "Every payment I covered is canceled," I said. "Every account linked to me is closed. Mom, your phone bill is off my card. Daniel, your insurance autopay is gone. Lauren, the daycare draft and your car note are your responsibility now. And before any of you ask, no, there is no emergency fund, no backup account, no quiet line of credit waiting for family use." The room went still. Daniel shoved his chair back. The legs scraped against the hardwood. "You can't just do that overnight." "I already did." Lauren stared at me. Her eyes were wet, but the tears hadn't fallen yet, balanced on the edge, performing the same trick my mother had taught her. "What are we supposed to do?" It was the first honest question anyone had asked me all evening. I met her eyes. "Figure it out the way adults do when no one is quietly carrying them." My mother's voice softened, that trembling tone, the one she used like a key in a lock she'd picked 1,000 times. "Amelia, I am your mother." "Yes," I said. "That's what makes this disgusting." The room fell completely silent. Even the cartoon laughter from the living room sounded like it came from a different building. For 5 full seconds, nobody breathed. Daniel looked between Lauren and Martha, waiting for someone to restore the old order, someone to crack, someone to say, "Let's not do this right now," which was code for, "Let's pretend this didn't happen and try again next month." No one could. They had all realized the same thing at the same moment. The person they had reduced to a function had stepped out of it. My mother set her fork down carefully, precisely, the way she did everything when she wanted to appear dignified. "Are you really doing this?" I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. "I already did. Dinner's over." No one touched the pie. They didn't leave together. That would have required coordination, and coordination requires dignity, and dignity requires a story you can still believe in. They didn't have one anymore. Daniel stormed out first. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair so hard the chair tipped and hit the floor. "This is pathetic," he said. "You're selfish. You're dramatic. You've always been dramatic. Every word a thief life uses when the vault finally closes. Lauren stayed frozen, staring at the screenshots as if reading them slowly enough might change the words. My mother remained seated, hands folded, posture perfect, wearing the expression of an injured party in a story she had written herself. "Say something," Lauren whispered, to me, to Martha, to the room. "I did," I said. She looked up. "You're blowing up the whole family over this." "No," I said. "I'm blowing up the arrangement. The family was already gone. I just wasn't on the email." Eric, who had been quiet all evening, Eric, who I'd always liked because he was the kind of man who noticed things without needing to announce them, finally spoke. "Were these payments really coming from Amelia's accounts?" He looked at Lauren. "I thought your mom was helping with daycare." Lauren's face shifted. Not guilt, exactly. Something worse. Panic. She hadn't expected collateral damage. She hadn't expected her husband to learn the truth in this room, at this table, in front of the sister she'd been quietly defrauding for years. "Eric, not now," she said. He didn't look away. "How long?" She didn't answer. That silence did more damage than anything I could have said. My mother stood and shifted tactics the way a chess player sacrifices a pawn to protect the queen. "Amelia, this is family business. It doesn't need an audience." I almost smiled. Almost. "You made it an audience when you turned me into a joke." Her mouth tightened. "You've always been too sensitive." "There it is," I said quietly. "Hurt me, then accuse me of bleeding too loudly." For the first time that night, maybe for the first time in my adult life, my mother had no response. Lauren began to cry. Real tears or performance tears, I couldn't tell anymore, and that inability was itself a kind of answer. "I know what we said was awful," she said. "I know. But you don't understand how hard things have been." "I understand exactly how hard things have been," I said. "I paid for them. $74,000 worth." The number landed like a slap. Lauren's mouth opened. Even Eric's eyes widened. Daniel came back in from the hallway, irritated that no one had followed him, unable to leave without an audience for his exit. "You know what? Fine. Keep your money. Don't come crying to us when you end up alone." That one hit. He knew it would. They all knew my worst fear, the one I'd carried since I was 11, that without the buying, without the giving, without the proving, I would end up exactly where my father's absence had always told me I belonged. Nowhere. With no one. I walked to the front door and opened it. "I was already alone," I said. "I was just expensive." Daniel brushed past without meeting my eyes. Eric led the boys out, coats on, voices low. Lauren followed, dazed, like someone leaving a building after an earthquake, still checking to see if the ground would hold. My mother paused at the threshold. She was still holding the supermarket bouquet. She'd set it on the counter when she arrived and forgotten about it, the way she forgot about everything that didn't serve her, and now it hung from her hand like a prop she didn't know how to use. "You'll regret this," she said. I looked at her, at the lines around her mouth, at the careful way she held her chin up, even now, at the woman who had taught me that love was something you earned through sacrifice, and then had turned that lesson into a business model. "What I regret," I said, "is how long it took." She left. I closed the door. I expected to collapse. People always say that, and then I fell apart. It makes for a better story, but I didn't fall apart. I cleaned. I packed the leftovers into glass containers and labeled them with masking tape. I washed every dish by hand, even the ones that could have gone in the dishwasher, because the warm water and the repetition kept my hands busy and my mind focused. I wiped the table. I blew out the candles. I threw my mother's bouquet in the trash without separating the flowers, without saving the baby's breath the way I normally would have because I liked how it looked in a small vase on my bathroom windowsill. Then I sat on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinet, knees pulled up, and I let everything come. Not guilt, grief, not for the money, for the years. For every Friday phone call I answered thinking it was love. For every check I wrote thinking it was connection. For every emergency that was a test, and every test I passed, and every passing grade that made them more certain I would never fail them, because failing them in their math meant failing to pay. I cried for the 11-year-old girl who read a letter from her father and decided that if she just gave enough, no one would ever leave again. She was wrong. They'd never been there to begin with. The next morning, my phone had 17 notifications. Lauren, 11:47 p.m. I'm sorry. Daniel, 11:52 p.m. Unbelievable. My mother, 12:03 a.m. We need to talk when you calm down. Daniel, 12:15 a.m. You know mom can't afford her bills alone. This is cruel. Lauren, 12:31 a.m. Eric isn't speaking to me. Thanks for that. My mother, 1:07 a.m. I didn't raise you to be this cold. I deleted Daniel's messages, left my mother's unread. To Lauren, after a long pause, I wrote, "Sorry is a start. It is not a refund." Then I got dressed and drove to Helen Park's office. Helen had prepared a full financial review overnight. She's the kind of person who sends emails at 5 a.m. with subject lines like action items, urgent, and means every word. "Here's what I recommend," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. "New beneficiaries on your 401k and life insurance. Right now, your mother is listed on both. New emergency contacts across the board. And I'd suggest meeting with a family law attorney, not because you're suing anyone, but because if your mother tries to claim financial dependence or files any kind of elder abuse allegation, which happens more than you'd think, you want documentation ready." "Elder abuse?" I said. "I'm the one who's been paying her bills." "Exactly. And when you stop the narrative flips, you become the ungrateful daughter who abandoned her elderly mother. I've seen it before." She gave me the name of a family law attorney, David Chen, a partner at Becker & Associates on East Broad Street, 19 years of practice, specializing in family financial disputes. I called him that afternoon. David was calm, precise, and unsentimental. Exactly what I needed. "You're not legally obligated to support any of them," he said. "Ohio has no filial responsibility statute that would apply here. Your mother isn't destitute. She has Social Security income, and from what you've described, her expenses were being supplemented, not sustained. explained. You were generous. Generosity isn't a contract. He paused, then said something I've thought about every day since. The hardest part of what you're doing isn't the money, Amelia. It's the identity. You've been the provider for so long that stopping feels like losing yourself, but you're not losing yourself. You're finding out who you are without the weight. I sat in his office for an hour. I didn't cry. But when I left, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Light. The fallout came in stages. Week 1, silence. Nobody called, nobody texted. I assumed they were regrouping, sharing strategies in the group chat I was never meant to see. Week 2, my mother called. Not on Friday, on a Monday, which was unusual enough to feel tactical. I answered. Amelia, my phone is going to be shut off. I know, I said. You'll need to set up your own account. I don't know how to do that. The T-Mobile store on Morse Road can help you. They walk you through it. Silence. Then, is this really who you want to be? This is who I've always been, I said. You just never had to meet her. She hung up. Week 3, Daniel showed up at my condo unannounced on a Saturday morning. I saw him through the peephole. He knocked 3 times, waited, knocked again, then said through the door, Amelia, this is ridiculous. Open the door. I didn't. He stood there for 12 minutes. I know because I watched the clock above the stove. Then he left and I heard his car start, and the street went quiet. Week 4, Lauren sent me an email, a real one. Not a text, not a voicemail, but a 2-page email that I could tell she'd written and rewritten multiple times. She admitted that the group chat had existed for over a year. She admitted that she'd lied to Eric about the source of the daycare payments. She admitted that our mother had started the chat originally as a way to coordinate, asking me for help so they didn't overlap and arouse suspicion. Coordinate, like a supply chain. But she also wrote something else. I'm not going to pretend I didn't know it was wrong. I knew. I told myself it was different because we're family, because you had more than us, because you never said no. But those are excuses. I treated you like a resource instead of a sister, and I'm ashamed of that. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I see it now. I read it twice. I didn't respond for 3 days. Then I wrote back, I believe you see it. I need time to decide if seeing it is enough. 2 months after the dinner, I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Rebecca Torres, a licensed clinical psychologist with a practice near Easton. Denise had recommended her after I mentioned that I kept waking up at 3 a.m. and checking my bank account, not because I was worried about money, but because the absence of outgoing transfers felt wrong, like phantom limb pain for a habit I'd amputated. Dr. Torres was direct in a way I appreciated. She didn't use soft lighting and leading questions. She sat across from me in a gray armchair and said, "You've been performing the role of provider since you were a child. That role gave you purpose, identity, and a sense of safety. Removing it is going to feel like free fall, even though it's freedom. Those two things feel identical at first." She was right. The first month without the payments felt like silence. The second month felt like space. By the third month, it felt like mine. I started doing things I hadn't done in years. I took a pottery class on Saturday mornings. I went to a concert alone, just me, a glass of overpriced wine, and a band I'd liked since college. I booked a trip to Savannah for no reason other than I'd always wanted to see the Spanish moss. I spent money on myself without calculating whether there was enough left for everyone else. The guilt came in waves, but the waves got smaller. 5 months after the dinner, Lauren and I met for coffee. It was her idea. She suggested a place neither of us had been. Neutral ground, no memories embedded in the furniture. She looked thinner, tired, but she looked at me differently too, without the calculation. "Eric and I are in counseling," she said. "Good. He's angry. Not at you, at me, for lying about the daycare money, for the whole thing." She wrapped both hands around her mug. "He said he felt like he didn't know me. I didn't say what I was thinking, which was, welcome to the club. Daniel's not speaking to any of us," she continued. "He told Mom it's your fault, and Mom agrees. But Mom also can't pay her electric bill, so she's been calling me, and I can't cover it either. I'm barely covering my own. What are you going to do?" I asked. She looked at me. Figure it out the way adults do. She'd remembered. I almost smiled. "Mom applied for HEAP assistance through the county," Lauren said. "Daniel found a second job delivering for DoorDash. I'm picking up freelance bookkeeping through a friend of Eric's." She paused. "We should have been doing this all along." "Yes," I said. "You should have." We sat quietly for a while. The coffee shop was warm, and someone was playing acoustic guitar near the window, and for the first time in 5 months, being near my sister didn't feel like standing next to an open drain. "I don't know if we'll ever be what we were," she said. "We shouldn't be," I said. "What we were was broken." She nodded. She didn't cry. And that, more than anything, told me something had actually changed. It's been a year now. I still see Dr. Torres every other Thursday. I still check my bank account at 3 a.m. sometimes, but the phantom pain is fading. I got promoted at work. Senior director now, with a team of 4 analysts and a window office that looks out over the Scioto River. I paid off my condo 6 months early. I adopted a gray cat named Otis who sleeps on my chest and purrs like a small, warm engine. Lauren and I talk. Not every week, but regularly, honestly. She sends me photos of the boys without asking for anything, and I send her photos of Otis without feeling like I owe her something. It's not rebuilt, it's new, and new is slower, but it's cleaner. Daniel hasn't spoken to me since the dinner. I've made peace with that. Some people don't want a relationship without a transaction, and I can't make him want one. My mother calls occasionally. The conversations are short, polite, and careful, like 2 diplomats from countries that recently ended a war. She has never apologized directly. She has said, "I wish things were different," which is not the same thing, and we both know it, but she's paying her own bills. She figured out T-Mobile. She applied for a senior discount on her electric through AEP. She's surviving the way she always could have if she hadn't found someone willing to survive for her. People ask me if I regret it. The dinner, the envelope, envelopes, the silence, I don't. What I regret is the 11-year-old girl who read a letter from a man who left and decided that love was something you purchase, who spent 23 years writing checks to people who cashed them and called it family. But here's the thing about that girl. She's still in me. She still flinches when the phone rings on a Friday. She still feels a pull when someone says, I just need a little help. She still wants to be needed so badly it aches. The difference is, I don't let her sign the checks anymore. I let her rest.